What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works? Can that faith save him?
Alright, so this is going to be a video about me telling you how much I love Jesus. Actually, hold on one second. Let me go. This will probably be better in black and white too. It's much more sincere when it's in black and white. And a little bit of sappy music in the background. There we go. Can you read that? That's perfect. That's perfect. Alright, so this is my video telling you just how much I love Jesus and about my faith. I guess you could say it's my testimony. When I was 14 years old, I went.
Dad,
yes.
Want to go watch a laugh?
Watch Connor laugh. I'm really busy telling the church how much I love Jesus right now. Give me like 20 minutes and maybe I'll come out, okay?
Okay.
Alright, sorry. I really love my family. They mean the most, they mean everything to me, and I'll do anything for them. But alright, back to what I was saying. This is my faith story, my testimony, and about how I love Jesus. Now, when I was 14 years old, I went on a mission trip to Panama, and the mission trip was completely covered by God. He covered every penny.
Swimming?
Swimming? Now, hon, I just say to you that I'm too busy because I'm telling the church how much I love Jesus. So you have to give me a minute, okay, sweetie?
Okay.
Alright. I really, really love my family. And sometimes, it can be a little overwhelming. This is very important. Alright, so let me try this one more time. Where was I at? Oh, 14 years old, Panama, man, God paid for my trip, my mission trip. He really, man, it was like a miracle. I didn't put out a single penny. So we went down into this island right in the Pacific, and we were building this pastor's home. And, I think I alluded to this before at church.
Is Dad like to watch me do T-ball?
T-ball?
Yeah.
Hon? How many times I gotta tell you I'm doing this video for the church? We'll try this again some other time. What good is it if you say you love your family, but you're too busy to love your family? What good is it? Well, okay, look, I love my daughter. You can't take that from me. Yeah, I'm sure you love your family. I can't take that from you. But what good is it? What good is that love if you're always too busy to love? You see, the person who is, we could call him a workaholic. Hi, Dad. Love the shirt. It's not like mine. Are those flowers? I'm gonna train you to start coming earlier. Lilies. Easter was last week. What good is it if you say you're on time, but you're never on time? If you love your family, if you love your family and you're always too busy, I guarantee you live with a lot of judgment and a lot of guilt upon yourself. I don't know a dad or a mom who truly loves their family, which you can't fabricate that love. It's there, it's in you, and yet is so distracted by the work, the slavery of work or the world, and they're caught in two worlds. You want to love, but you can't. What good is it to say? You see, are you not living in a lot of guilt, a lot of condemnation, because the mind is at war with itself? What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works? Can that faith save him? I almost don't want to go here because this has caused so much problems in interpreting this verse and setting you free to love people and to have mercy and to get in your seat where you belong. But I want to spend a couple minutes acknowledging what the church has done in messing up your ability to interpret this just innocently through James. Have we not? I YouTubed James 2:14 sermons. And title after title after title says the real meaning of faith and works. Or do you have to have works to be saved? And what happens in all these sermons and what I'm about ready to do and I have contributed to in the past is we have brought James up in his words and we go to Ephesians 2, and I did this last week to tease you about the sermon today, and we look at Paul's words and we juxtapose them on each other and we say, is there a contradiction here? Well, then we would say, no, there's not. The Bible doesn't stand against each other. But what have we just done in your minds? What has just been done? A seed of doubt has been sown. Well, is there a contradiction? What good is that? What good is it to ask you, is there a contradiction, if you believe there's no contradiction? And there isn't. You see, what James, in this section of chapter 2, Faith and Works, uses words that Paul uses, but he doesn't use them in the same sense. The word save. Well, save from what? Right? I mean, initially we fill in the blank with hell. Is that what James is saying? He uses the word justified. And later on, I think verse 17, verse 18, is justified what? Well, we think in front of God. Could he not be referring to something else? And so what we've done, we've made a mess that we're trying to now clean up. Instead of just asking the question, what does James mean? If we can get into James' thinking, we would never have this contradiction. But we do. Because the church, and I'm not throwing them all under the bus. I mean, I was a part of that. I was a part of that growing up, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore. So let's go to Ephesians 2. Actually, before we do, James has already said, by the way, you're not saved by faith and works. I mean, so he's already said this. We've already studied it. We've already brought it up. So if you just look at James, you would see there's no contradiction. Are you saved? Don't answer. Please don't answer this. Are you saved by faith? Are you saved by faith? Well, you got Romans 10, right? And believing in what is preached, and you'll be saved. Believe in your heart, confess with your mouth, and you're saved. I mean, is that faith? Well, we got the centurion who, with Paul and Silas, what must I do to be saved? And Paul says, believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, you'll be saved. Saved from what? I mean, we got to ask that question. I mean, is it possible the centurion's asking, saved from death? Because I'm about to die, because you're not in jail anymore. Me and my family, we're going to be toast. You just see, all I'm doing, let's just ask questions. Let's move our perspective just to get, these contradictions, they're not as big as oftentimes we make them. James has already said you're not saved by faith and works. You're saved by grace. You're saved by grace. Now, somebody told me, and I haven't researched it, but there's a definition to grace that means influence, which fits the Ephesians paradigm that before the world ever was formed, you were predestined to be a child of God. So at some point in your life, there was an influence placed in you to awaken you and to call you into salvation. You're saved by grace through faith. Hebrews uses the words through faith. Paul uses the word through faith. It's like this. We have two chairs up here. Jesus is in one chair. The other one is there for you. Or Robin Allison. You can fight over it. I took it from the Tweedies row and did not realize they're half the church. So I threw them. Y'all about walked out this morning. We're done. They don't care about us. You just hide behind the screen too if you want. But okay, so you got to get there, right? That's where Jesus is at, right? But we live in this world of the old self and new self. So I'm standing here. I have faith, people. I have faith. What good is that? I need to be there with Jesus. That's where the party is. That's where life is. Through faith, faith places me in my chair. Faith gets me in my new life. Faith, where Jesus is, that's where the Spirit is. That's where love, joy, patience, that's where I want to be. Not in that chair is a world of darkness, is a world of fear, of anxiety. I want to get out of this world and get there. And I do that, and you do that through faith. But what if the channel's broken? What if the vehicle isn't working? Is your faith useless? What if your faith is not producing the results of the Spirit as it all? All right, but I'm getting off track. Ephesians 2:8, for by grace you have been saved through faith. This is not your doing, it is the gift of God. You got that? James has already said this. James chapter 1. Just to show you there's no contradictions in James 2:14 against Paul. James would be he'd be contradicting himself. James 1:18. All right, so chapter 1 comes before chapter 2. Of his own will he brought you forth. Now, because you sat through that sermon, you know brought you forth means born again. It's the same word for birth. He birthed you of his own will. By what? The word of truth. That we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. So James has already established you are saved. Your souls are saved. Let's define these words a little bit better. Your souls are saved by God's will implanting the word of truth in you. He brought you forth. I want to do something here, though. I found this interesting when I did this. Ephesians 2:8, James 1:8. You see down at the bottom corner, it says Ephesians and James. James wrote, that's the only book James wrote. Man, he's smart. Name it after me. Paul wrote so much, he had to name it after cities. He could have Paul 1, Paul 2, Paul 3, Paul 4, Paul 5. But he did it. All right, so, but what if we just covered up this? Okay? You did not know James or Paul wrote, right? Let's just pretend. Let's imagine for a moment. You don't know who wrote this. You just opened up a book and just started flipping pages and reading, okay? Let's read them back to back, and let's just see if they sound like they're against each other. All right, so you open up a book, and you read, for by grace you have been saved through faith. This is not your own doing. It is the gift of God. You flip the page. Of his own will, he brought us forth by the word of truth. We should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. It's almost seamless. There's no break in it. You would not be able to tell the difference in the authors until you actually look at the authorship, that part of the book in the introduction where your Bible is trying to be a cool Bible, so it gives you the notes about the author. You know, if you didn't have any of that, you would think the same person wrote the book, each book. The only difference is the pronouns. But let's change the pronouns to be third person. Okay? I want to see how smooth this is. I mean, For by grace we have been saved through faith, and this is not our own doing, it is the gift of God. Of his own will he brought us forth by the word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Do you see what I'm seeing here? There's no friction between these two writers. They both start their books by declaring that God so loved you, he called you. And he made it possible for you to sit in that seat through faith. Okay, so there's no contradiction in James. I mean, there's no contradiction between James and Paul. Well, but now we get into faith and works. But we're so wired to think James is standing against Paul that it just tosses us into some turmoil. And I want to prove to you he doesn't. And we've already seen that James is saying the exact same thing as Paul. But James and Paul actually write in a very similar manner. If you read Paul's epistles, what does Paul start with? He starts with how God and you come together. Typically what God does in your life. And then Paul moves into how you relate with other people. A lot of Paul's structure is between you and God, and then you and people. Well, James chapter 1 is about you and God. He tests your faith. Don't doubt him. Don't think he's tempting you. He's implanted this word in you. And then there's a shift at the end of chapter 1 about true religion. It brings in people. And chapter 2 is about you, God, and others. So far, James and Paul really mirror each other a lot. You see, so when we as the church say, hey, or as preachers, it appears that there's a contradiction here, we're just tossing you through confusion for the sake of, being heroes up here. There's just no reason for you to have to go through all that. Why don't we just start with the assumption they're saying the same thing. James 1:26, I want you to see this transition. If anyone thinks he is religious, does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. It actually sounds like what he's saying about faith. If you say you have faith, but you have no works, what good is that faith to you? So, true religion religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is to what? Visit orphans and widows in their affliction. What is the definition of mercy? Mercy is a trait, a quality that is aroused when you see undeserved affliction in others. True religion is mercy. And James, I'm getting them confused. They sound so much alike. James is saying, specifically widows and orphans, to give you a clear picture of undeserved affliction. We continue the shift because James now moves into this idea of partiality. Don't show partiality to the rich and throw the poor in a corner. And then he gets this point, but if you do show partiality, you are committing sin and are convicted by the law as transgressors. Guys, we are going to read up to verse 14. All right, so watch the flow of words here. For whoever keeps the whole law but fails in one point has become guilty of it all. You fail one point, and what James is saying, that this is partiality is failing the law, you're now guilty of all the law. For he who said, do not commit adultery, also said, do not murder. If you do not commit adultery, but do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. So speak, so act as those who are to be judged under the law of liberty. So James is trying to get you out from under the written law and under a new law, a law of liberty. This is a law that is governed by that man sitting in a chair waiting for you to sit next to him so you two can both live in the same world by the same laws. It is a law written upon your heart. So we've said this multiple times, but for the sake of repetition, or if you've missed it, the law of liberty is mercy. It is love. It is what has been written upon your hearts as Gentiles, that you prove that there is a God. So speak and so act as those who are to be judged under the law of liberty. For judgment is without mercy to one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. If you have no mercy in your life, you are saved by grace. Your soul is saved by grace. If you do have mercy in your life, and you love your family, and you say you love your family, but you're not over there with them, you're living under judgment. You judge yourself. I say I love my family, but they're over there, and I never join them in life. Am I not a judgment to myself? Are you not a judgment to yourself? And I'll tell you, that life is a life that is, it's a prison to anyone and everyone who lives in that mindset. I love my family, but I can't join them because I work too much. I'm living in an affair. I am fill in the blanks of whatever it is that's keeping you from loving your family. Your mind, you are under self-judgment and self-condemnation. You're living with two minds. And so what James is saying, the one who says he has mercy but shows no mercy, he's living in self-judgment. He judges himself because there is a new law written upon his heart. Now, this law comes from that man, the righteous being Jesus Christ, that you live with also. You judge yourself because he is written upon your heart, your new creation. And you are, James doesn't mince words. You are a double-minded man. You are tossed to and fro by the wind like the waves of the sea. You need to be saved from that. Right now. Today. Verse 14 now. Don't separate this from the rest of James. With all the fluff teaching out there, it will just throw you into chaos. What good is it, my brothers, if you say you have faith, but you do not have works? Can that faith save you? We're going to ask 3 questions about this passage. What good is it? Let's look at that. What does that mean? What are the works? And what are we being saved from? What good is it? That literally means what profit is it to you? What gain is there for you? What good is it if you say you have faith? What good is it? It's of no gain. It's just all talk. You stay stuck in this double-minded way if you're just chatter. There is a way to get into that seat where love reigns and where peace lives, but you're not there by talking. What did James say in chapter 1? Be slow to speak, slow to anger, and quick to listen. James got something. I don't know. Maybe he lived with someone who talked a lot and had no gain behind his words. But James has something. He just got something about people who just yap and yap and yap and yap, and just there's just no nothing behind the yapping. And he's pointed out in these Jews and us, what good is it to yap about your faith story and your testimony if that's all you're doing? It's not placing you where you need to be in that one mind that is the mind of Christ. It's keeping you stuck. So what good is it? What profit is it to you, my brothers, sisters, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? He's not obedient. Now, see, don't go there. He doesn't say that. I don't know, maybe there's a translation out there that says that. But according to the ESV, it does not have works. Faith without works. What good is it to say you love your family, but you don't show love to your family? And by the way, you probably tell your family, don't judge me. I'm busy working and providing for the family. That's why I can't hang out with you at all. But you see, that reveals the self-judgment. And on top of it, reality is they're going to be thinking, does he really love me? Does he really, truly love us? I really love Jesus. Well, you get tired of hearing that. And there come a point where you actually may think, does he really love Jesus? That's all he says. What's the interaction right now in James? It's between man and man. You want to kind of keep that in the back of your mind. What good is it if I say to you? I'm not talking to God, I'm talking to you. Or we're talking about partiality. What good is it? No, I'm not. I have faith. I'm not showing partiality. Those people walking about, that's not me. Well, what good is it if you say you have faith, but yet you're dividing people? You're sucking up to the rich and tossing the poor in a corner. What good is your faith? What are the works? What are these works? 1 Peter 1. I want to go 1 Peter 1 for a second. And see what you're designed to do. All right, James has already said it. Let's hear Peter say it. Peter says, having purified your souls by your obedience to the truth, by your faith, your belief in Jesus Christ, your obedience to that word of truth that was implanted in you, having purified your souls by your obedience to the truth, for, this is what you're prepped for now, a sincere brotherly love. Now he says what? You're prepped for it. You've got the knack for it. Though Peter doesn't stop short. He says, now go live in it. Love one another. Earnestly. Let it be your utmost desire, your passion. And do it from a pure heart. Peter's saying that's how you get in that seat. That's the active through faith. You say you have faith. Now go live in the manner in which you have been prepped. Okay, I get verse 23. Now look at this. What is he rooting this in? Since you've been born again, not of perishable seed. The Greek is sperma. And so you could take it from there. The sperma of God in you. He's your new DNA. But of an imperishable, through the living, abiding Word of God. This is what James said. He's brought you forth by this Word, this logos of truth that has united you to God and has created fellowship. But what good is it if you just say, I have fellowship with God? But we're not living like him. He's just doing his own thing and I'm doing my own thing and we're not doing the same thing. What good is it? Well, James has also talked about these works. Verse 22, chapter 1, be doers of the word. Now, that's a noun. This is who you are. You are a doer of this word. James says, be it. Be doers of the word. Verse 27, we already saw it. Religion is visiting orphans and widows in their affliction. What's the common denominator in these? Verse 1 of chapter 2, show no partiality. Verse 12, speak and act as if you're under the law of liberty. Verse 13, mercy triumphs over judgment. I mean, the works James are talking about is not some fluffy obedience or doing kind things. The works he's talking about is the very nature of Christ in you, which loves, which shows mercy, which is aroused when you see people in their affliction and you have this just longing to love on them. That's not you. That's Christ in you. That's your faith coming to life. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? So we're up here, man. I'm telling you, I love Jesus. I'm telling you, I have faith in him. I'm telling you. It's for real. I mean, you can get tired of me just saying that over and over again. There comes a point where if I say it enough, you'll eventually start to think, well, just prove it, man. Just hush up and prove it. I want to avoid using prove it throughout this series because it is also overused in this James 2 commentary. That James is just saying, you're just proving your faith. There's an essence of truth there, but, there comes a point, though, that you believe what I'm saying because you see it. But even more than that is what good is it to me? Forget about you and what you think about me. Forget about what other people think about you and your faith. What good is it for you? If you're stuck in a world that is, the world of your old nature that is filled with fear and anxiety and stress and depression. Well, I have faith, but I'm just constantly, and the struggles go on and on. There's so much good to living in your faith and having mercy. Your health will improve because you are living in a place, in a seat where there's the utmost peace. Stress does not live over there. And stress causes all sorts of damage to who you are today. There is a lot of good. So the question really, and I'm pegging this more now to today, is what James saying, save him, is this a spiritual salvation or is it a physical salvation? What is save you from what? I want to know, man, what is save you from what? Because this is what my faith is good for. The works and faith together is good for something, apparently. It's going to save me from something. It's not your souls. It's not saving your souls. James has already declared what saves your souls. Therefore, verse 21 of chapter 1, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word. Once again, no contradictions. This which is able to save your souls. The implanted word is what saves your soul. So now what, faith and works saves your soul? Well, no, he's talking about something else. Save you from something else. Back to verse 13. Chapter 2, the verse right before what he's talking about save you from. Judgment is without mercy to one who has shown no mercy. Mercy triumphs over judgment. The salvation is the salvation of your own torment. You are stuck in two worlds. There's a part of you that is living with Jesus and is alive. There's a part of you that is dead and is destined to be buried. Both of these people have minds and mindsets. One is the mind of Christ and one is the mind of fill in your name. The old you. The old you will continue to try to enslave you. The old you will continue to remind you that you are guilty and are a sinner. The old you will judge you, divide you, condemn you. Faith with works is good to save you from that mindset. It is good to save you today, to place you in the home where Jesus lives in your heart. I told you back in the first sermon of this year that we as a church will determine to respect and honor all people. Back in November, I said, let's just try it. No matter who you encounter, just choose to respect and honor, have mercy, and see what happens? The two fuse, the faith and works, those works fuse together to bring out the Christ in you. Your demeanor changes, your attitude changes, the way you laugh brightens up. You live in peace. You are being conformed to the man that is right next to you. Got to get in that chair. Got to get there. We don't do it by yapping about our faith. We activate our faith by becoming just like the one that we're becoming like. And it takes faith. It takes faith to know this. Now look, I mean, we go into Hebrews 11, and Hebrews 11 is all these men that are doing incredible things with their faith. They're dividing Red Seas. They're running out and living in deserts. They're getting pregnant at 100 years old. They're doing things that are just incredible. They just haven't moved mountains yet. But I bet you they could, because that is the power that lives within you. But if you feel it's dead and useless, how do you bring it to life? Works. Oh, but isn't that word so charged with negativity? But when you see it through the eyes of James, go and learn what it means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice. And James proves to you that mercy triumphs, conquers judgment. And you see, the works he's talking about are the works of mercy on the afflicted. Man, you just come right to life. I have a compressor, not that you care, but I like it. Apparently, you can wire it for 120 volts or 220 volts. And I had it all plugged in my 120 volt, plug. And someone told me one day, watch that compressor come to life. Plug it, wire it for 220 and stick it in 220 volt, and that thing will fire up. I mean, it'll have life like you never knew. I feel like this is what James is saying to us. Man, plug yourself into some 220 volt and see what happens. Go love on some hurting people. See what happens to your faith. See what happens to you. And watch yourself be set free. I've got another video. I don't know if it's the next slide. Go ahead and black out. I'll preach through the blackness if it's the case. It's not. To keep it black, I'm going to preach in the darkness. Apparently, God wants you to see 1 Timothy. As I urged you when I was going to Macedonia, remain at Ephesus, so that you may charge certain persons not to teach any different doctrine. This is what you're being saved from also. People who teach different doctrines, nor devote themselves to myths and endless... This is what yapping about your faith ends up doing. You're just yapping about stuff that really don't matter. Myths, endless genealogies, promote speculations rather than the stewardship from God that is by faith. The aim of our charge is love that is issued from a pure heart and a good conscience and a sincere faith. Watch what happens when you just yap and yap and yap. Certain persons, by swerving from these, have wandered away into vain discussions. They're out in the deserts talking to trees, and they think they're changing the world for God because their mouths. They're desiring to be teachers of the law without understanding either what they are saying or the things about which they make confident assertions. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? Absolutely not. All right, sorry about that. I had to go give my daughter something else to do. She just wants to play with me, and she can't see that I'm really busy trying to tell you about my faith, my faith story. So, I really love my family, but I got to get this done. Okay, so back to where I was. All right, 14 years old.
Dad, would you want to watch me do a trick? We're doing a picture.
Set it back. Come set it up. Try it again.
church. Just letting you know we love God so much.
And I want to play t-ball. What good is it, church, if we say we love our family, but never go and love our family? What good is it if you say you have faith,